Hello everyone, my name is Holden Hardman. Thank you so much for joining me again for another video. As you can see, I'm in my new office. It is not set up yet. We have just moved and kind of in the process of getting things together and working on videos. I wanted to do this one before kind of too much time went by. Finally posted my Batman short film, Batman, An Innocent Guy, on July 29th, and it took probably about 2 full months to get it completed. It runs about 12 minutes long. And I just wanted to talk about the process of making it. And I know that when people see like the subscriber number, they think that you have like this endless supply of resources, and it's just really not the truth. I've been making little videos and short films for as long as I can remember. And while I do have some more resources available to me now, it's not like this, I don't have like a studio. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about how I made it, why I made some decisions that I decided to make, how you, as the viewer, if you're a short film maker or somebody that's interested in doing that, how you can make short films just with what you have. I think the total budget that I spent on this was probably maybe like around $1,000. Now I know that that's a lot, but over the course of a month to actually shoot and do post-production work, and then like the month prior, you know, if you can save up that kind of money, or you could probably even cut, I don't want to say cut corners, but you can choose to do some things differently than the way that I did them. If I could go back and reshoot this, I would have done a little bit less probably green screen work and more practical work. I think it would have looked better and probably would have saved me some money as well. So just things like that. Probably the most important thing when it comes to kind of low budget short film fan films like Batman or whatever you want to do is shoot within your means. So I knew going in that I don't have the manpower, I don't have the resources to do an elaborate like Batman fight sequence. I would love the opportunity to direct like a Batman versus like 6-7 guys in a warehouse, like Batman versus Superman style, or something, you know, probably more to make it my own, but something like that. I just can't do it. I just couldn't do it. The whole cast was 2 people. It was the Innocent Guy and it was Batman, and I filmed on 2 separate days with each of them individually. We were going to have Prime, you know, my friend Prime, he was actually going to play the Penguin. We wrote a sequence out. We even have in the short film Batman talking to him, but there's no response because the day that we were filming the Batman stuff, we were going to film the Penguin stuff, and Prime had his baby, his daughter Hadley, the day that we filmed that. So I was like, how selfish could you be, Prime man? But it's okay. Remember, the show must go on. I know a lot of people can get really discouraged when they're trying to do something a specific certain way and then they're not able to do it, and then they just scrap the whole project. Don't do that. Finish what you're starting. Speaking of which, one of the reasons I wanted to do this is because I've been stuck on my Spider-Man short film for like 2 years now. I started it like the month before COVID hit. This will date this story. It's not, you know, it's going to be one of those I'm going to release. It's going to be like, okay, you know, but I've been working on it for so long. We filmed about 2 months ago at a green screen studio for some more of it. But that's exactly my point, is that it's a much more elaborate, bigger project, so it's just taking a lot more time and a lot more effort. And I wish I never would have announced I was working on it. I would have preferred that I was just working on it this whole time kind of secretly, and then when it's close to like 80-90% done, then I could be like, oh, by the way, there's this thing coming. So I really wanted to make a Batman short film kind of in the interim, but it had to be small scale. It had to be a doable project. So I went to YouTube and I posted on my community tab, what are some good like one-off Batman short stories that you really enjoy? And I got a bunch of great recommendations. I read a few comics that they had recommended, but then I came back to An Innocent Guy, which was in the Killing Joke deluxe edition. It was like a special edition that came out later. Very, very popular. I had already read it before. I was already familiar with it. It's a lot of dialogue, so you gotta be careful because on YouTube, we like quick, you know, YouTube quick cuts and stuff. Short films are films, so there's a little bit more, you need more patience to watch them. You need to watch them as a film. And YouTube, you know, there's a YouTube culture that, you know, you just quick cuts and jump cuts and stuff to move things along, you know, quickly. So I know going in that a lot of dialogue, it's gonna be boring if we don't do it right. So I had Tyler come in, Tyler Gillette, who played the Innocent Guy. He's a friend of Matt's. He's actually an American Ninja Warrior. He was on TV, so he's extremely athletic. And one of the challenges that we had was making him look less physically intimidating. He's a very, very capable dude. So we gave him like a shirt that was too big on him. We kind of had him, it's all about body language. You know, we want him to kind of shrink in and be a little, try to make himself smaller. And Tyler and I had talked about doing future projects and stuff together. He's a big Spider-Man fan, so we have another Spider-Man thing we're thinking about doing, fingers crossed. But I told him, I was like, well, I'm working on this project. I need an actor. You know, would you be willing to do it? He lives out in Atlanta, which is about 4 hours away from me. And he's like, yeah. So he said, okay, we scheduled a time. We set up a very generic set. We based it off of the comic book panels. So we had like a bookshelf and the cameras, even the books that we displayed in some of the shots with Tyler, we took directly from the comic. So I actually had to order some of those to try and make it accurate. You know, it's one of those Easter egg things for people who are really paying attention. And of course, in the bookshelf far away, I don't know if you could see it, it's probably too dark, but there's a copy of the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy in there. My experience working with actors, they're not really actors, they're like my friends kind of doing me favors. And if I have like a chunk line of dialogue, they usually will kind of go like sentence by sentence when we shoot it, and I'll change the angle. Who wants to memorize 10 minutes of straight dialogue? Tyler comes in to set, he comes on to the day to film, and I asked him, it's like, did you by chance memorize your lines? Almost always hearing no, or almost always hearing like, yeah, kind of, yeah. And he was like, yeah, I got it. Got the whole thing. He was like prepared, and I was like, wow, that was new for me as a director. That was a new territory for me. So we were able to do the whole thing. I think we must have done 15, 16 takes. We did about 4 or 5 minutes straight of him going through the whole thing, and then I would change angles and do things kind of on my end. The amount of direction I had to give him was very, very minimal. I'm so used to change this, try and add some inflection here, give yourself a pause there, we want to build up this emotional moment. But he had come so prepared and pretty much was on the same wavelength as me of how we want to present the character. So there were only a few times that I had to tweak anything. I'd once heard that casting is like 90% of a director's job, and it couldn't be more true in this project, because he nailed that. I was able to just focus on the cinematography and little minute things, and I was just let him perform, which is what you want out of an actor. So he was great. And the burden of the whole thing falls on his shoulders, because if he does not give a good performance, the whole thing falls flat. So he came in and he did it. I think that he did a fantastic job. I'm super happy with his performance, and I can't wait to work on some more stuff with him. The other thing I wanted to have was a high quality Batman suit at a low quality cost. So here's what I did. And this is how my mind operates, because I've been doing it so long before any YouTube success. We have a local convention here called Pensacon, and I just went to Instagram. I did a Pensacon filter, Pensacon Batman, and I just looked and I tried to find anybody that had Batman costumes that might have been there, and I just sort of scoured that area. I think I looked in Mobile, which is about an hour from me as well. Came across Alex Goff, who had the Ben Affleck bat suit. It looked incredible, and I just messaged him, say, hey, my name's Holden. He had no idea who I was. Here's a project I'm working on. Here's some other stuff I'm working on. So I'm able to show him that I'm not just some dude off the street. I do videos, and I would love to have you come out and do this. You have to have at least kind of an idea for him, like what he's going to do. So I was like, here's what I would like to do. I'd like to bring you out to this studio. It's the green screen studio. I rented it out. Some more expense there. We probably could have filmed some of that with like some at-home green screen, save some money. Filmed it at this studio that I had filmed some Spider-Man stuff at. I was like, it's probably going to take like, I don't know, 2-3 hours. I think I paid for like 3-hour slot. It's just going to be us. So just the two. I've never met this guy before. Just the two of us. And he comes in, and the guy is like a freaking monster. He was super nice, luckily for me. But he comes out there, and I'm just like, okay, so here's what I'm thinking for this shot and what we're going to do, which is great, because you want your Batman to be big and intimidating, and he was just an absolute monster. I think the suit adds probably a little bit of definition, but he is a big dude. In the script that I wrote, I give myself little notes of what needs to be filmed where and how. So I know, like, as I'm writing it, like, things can sound great. Batman will fight 4 or 5 people here, and then I'm like, who are these 4 or 5 people? Can we schedule them? Can we get them together? So keep things like that in mind. So for the green screen stuff, I'm like, this is a mandatory green screen shot. We need this for the story. So we go and we filmed all the mandatory green screen stuff, and then we kind of had a little fun with it when we were done. We had about an hour or so left. We filmed it pretty quick, and then we got a couple shots of him jumping up, and a couple shots of him just standing heroically, a couple shots of him twirling. I think that actually made it into the short film. That was great. So I got my 2 actors. I paid him to travel and stuff. I think I paid him like $150 something. I paid Tyler about $150 as well. That's another cost expense. I'm used to actors and people just doing me a favor. That's been my the way that I've always done it prior to actually making money on YouTube now. So then I'm making money. I'm like, okay, I want to pay you guys for the day or whatever it is. So I'm able to give them money. But if you have friends that can do that type of thing, he even wasn't expecting that. He was just like, yeah, I just love to be a part of it. I love Batman. You seem like a cool guy. So luckily, having a comic book, it takes out a lot of the pre-production work, because you have a storyboard in the comic panels. You also have the script pretty much readily available. So I did go ahead and take the comic, and I put it in a more of an official script format. I didn't change much. I wanted to keep it pretty true to the source material. Also make sure that you credit the original writer if you do that. In this case, Brian Boland. I changed a couple of things I thought maybe didn't like sound good in comic form, but may not sound all that great if it's spoken. So I'd say about 90-95% of it is accurate to the original comic. We had filmed it all, and then I go home and I think I put together a rough cut probably within the first 48 hours of just like the linear story of how everything goes with no sound, no VFX, no nothing, except just like, I want this take, that take, that take. And I very much had that personality. Like when I'm like locked in, I'm like locked in. I'm just sitting here until I get, kind of what I want. So Devin did the majority of the VFX work. Devin is my primary editor for the channel. He does most of the, my wife watches, my friend watches, reaction stuff. He does a lot of the intros for the channel. You've seen those. They look absolutely great. So even before we got to filming, there were some shots I'm like, hey, do you think that we could pull this off? Or do you think that we could pull that off? There's a little bit of back and forth from us, seeing what was feasible, what wasn't. One shot that I really wanted to have in there was the Batman animated series shot. I wanted to see like a live action version of that. So I shot, when I was with Alex Goff, who's Batman, we did a couple of different angles and stuff to try and recreate the lightning shot from the animated series. And Devin worked on that, and he did a fantastic job. A lot of stuff that I've done in the past is not VFX heavy. I try to do a lot of that stuff practical or stuff within my wheelhouse. I can do some visual effects. I did like a lot of the lightsaber effects in my old Star Wars shorts, but it's not my forte. It's not my primary skill set. So if you can find somebody who's better at it than you, I would encourage you to do that. One thing I did try to do in this one is, because I was inundating Devin with such a workload, he was editing our weekly stuff on top of working on the VFX for Batman. I tried to outsource it a little bit. I hired on Tyler. I paid him for 3 shots. It's a little bit more budget, but I tried to take some of the workload off Devin. So Tyler did, who's great as well. Tyler did the bullet through the head shot and Batman lying on the ground. It looked fantastic. It took a while to get back to me, but it looks absolutely great. And one other shot that I really wanted to be in there, it was not in the final, and I was really disappointed that it wasn't in the final. I gave myself like a deadline, and I was like, you know what, if we can't get it the way I want it to, it's just not going to be in there. And it's this shot of Batman walking in slow motion. I thought it looked so sweet. It was one of that Alex Goff and I had decided to just try a couple of things. It was one of those shots, and I loved it. I wanted him to be like walking through a fire, and he walks through, and the fire like separates as he walks through in slow motion. And the fire's in slow motion. I thought it would have looked great. And so, Devin's already working on so much stuff, so I was like, I'll go to Fiverr. As I have done in the past, I have used Fiverr for different like various VFX things. I go through and I'm like looking at some of them, and I saw one that looked pretty good, and he had some previous work on there. Message him, and I'm talking to him about the project, and I was like, it's just like a 3 to 5 second slow-mo shot of Batman walking through this flame. And he's like, okay, I'll do it for you for $70. And I'm like, $70? Well, it's better look good for if I'm spending $70 on a 5-second shot, of just Batman walking. But I was like, okay, you know what, I'll do that. Let's do it. And he sends me this. He sends me, this is just a sample image. I didn't even download the thing because it looked so horrible. But if this looks good to you, no, not knocking it, but it's not a professional VFX shot. This is a guy who took an Adobe preset, removed the black background, and just put Batman in front of it. So like the flame is just like in front of the lens the whole time. It's stock. It was stock stuff. And he sent this to me with Batman like fading in and fading out. I just couldn't believe that. I was just like, dude, are you kidding? Like, I could have done that. The reason I'm outsourcing to a professional VFX artist is because I'm expecting like custom work. If you are going to use Fire presets, at least make it look better. So I sent him back, and I was like, no, it's not good enough. And he sent me something else, and I was just going to go back and forth with him. I was like, you know what, forget it. I might as well have just lit $70 on fire. But that's that's how it goes. Not to knock Fiverr. I have had some good work from Fiverr, but Fiverr is so hit or miss. But I bring that up because if you have a project you're wanting to work on, you don't have like any VFX artist friends or anybody that you know, I'd recommend going to Fiverr just to look around and check to see what they might be able to do. You can haggle kind of price with them. Something else you could do that I have yet to do, but this is what I probably will do in the future, or what I would do if I was in a different situation. So I would go to Reddit, and I would go to either like the Blender subreddit or some VFX subreddits on there, kind of just shop around. Talk to some of the guys that like post projects on there. A lot of them just have a passion for it, so they do it for fun. So if they can work on a project maybe with you, if you're working on something, a lot of the times you feel like, I can't really pay you, but here's what I can do. Maybe we could work on something for your channel. Be open to collaboration. If you can pay them, great. If not, you got to give something as well. And then the last last thing I think was this huge Batcave sequence that Devin did. In previous short films, like the Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees, Leatherface short film, I like having like a animated sequence for the credits. Feels very cinematic to me, and it's just nice to see like these little references. I did not think we were going to have time to do that just by the deadline, but Devin had been working on this Batcave sequence for a little while, but I loved it. There's references to The Dark Knight, there's the Joker card. I loved having the shot that we did of the giant typewriter with Batman jumping around as reference to some of the old comics. I wanted to make sure that we credited Bill Finger as one of the co-creators of Batman. If you have not seen Batman and Bill on Hulu, I would highly recommend you check that out because it is very important, and I found out about it from that and was really, really sad. But anyway, I also asked some patrons of mine if they had any specific questions about filmmaking or short filmmaking or this Batman project to leave me some questions. This one's from Christopher Jenkins. Hey, Holden and Jen, first time, long time. I have a couple of questions. Do you storyboard your shots? If not, do you figure your shots out? How do you do lighting on a budget? Great question. So storyboarding, I'm starting to do more of. A lot of the times I get things stuck in my head and then it's hard for me to convey that to other people who are working on a project with me. I did storyboard out a couple of shots for this one, but like I said earlier, because we were adapting a comic book straight up and I wanted to keep it as authentic, I used the comic book as my general storyboard, and you know, some of the shots I took directly out of it. Batman being shot, lying on the ground. So yeah, in those ways for sure. I borrowed some lights from my buddy Travis, who's in the credits. For the longest time, like Jen and I, we use these like these umbrella lights. You get them on Amazon. You can get them from like $50 to $100 or something. And we use them for like every My Wife Watches video we do. The lighting that we used in this one had like clamps, so I was able to kind of direct the light. You can tell it hits them kind of hard in it because you see a shadow's pretty strong against the wall. But we had directional light for that. But you can buy those for, I think even that one for maybe $100, maybe even less than that. A lot of it is just playing with how you want it to look. I remember doing this. You remember when ring lights were like the big thing where, you know, you'd have all these YouTubers talking and you could see the little ring light in their eyes. I couldn't afford a ring light. So what I did is I took a Frisbee, cut a hole in the middle of it to go around my camera lens, and I bought like $10 or $15 worth of LED lights at Lowe's, and I taped it around the Frisbee and lit it to just white, and it had the exact same effect. It was perfect. LED lights is also a great thing to use because they're usually cheap and they're usually versatile, so you can put them on anything. You can even get like a PVC pipe at Lowe's, a long one, short one, however long you want. Put your LED lights on there and then like stick them up like on the side of the walls or wherever for like general type of stuff. I'll be doing some more like lighting stuff in here once we get more set up. Johan, love the short film. Thank you. Really well done. Makes me wonder what you could accomplish with more time and a higher budget and a stable internet connection. Didn't have stable internet the entire time of this, so kudos to me for that. I will take that one pat on the back that I was able to make this whole short film without internet. I'm not a filmmaker myself, but I'd love to know what your process is on deciding when to use CGI for certain scene shots and when to try and get real footage. Great question. If I could go back, I would have got more real footage for Batman in this one. A lot of the stuff was unnecessary, and a lot of the stuff that we did was it would have looked better real anyway. So we shot all the green screen stuff with Batman, and then we went downtown Pensacola late at night purposely because I knew a certain street that looked Gotham-y, well lit, with not a whole lot of people that we'd be able to film. And I wanted to get this sort of opening walking sequence of Batman and the police sirens and these gunshots and everything to show the need for Gotham in the city and to try and prelude the horror later if this guy really does decide to kill Batman, the implication, because Batman is needed. But a lot of these shots like that we used at the green screen of him like walking up, talking, we should have just filmed downtown, and it would have saved me some money and it probably would have looked better. Practical when you can, CGI when you need to, or to enhance the practical. Emil, would love to hear where you got the idea of the short film from. Talked about that a little bit earlier in the video. Just wanted something that was feasible that I could actually pull off. What were some of the favorite shots, concepts in the short that came from you and your creative team rather than necessarily being directed from the panels of the comic? The opening sequence was Batman walking. I wanted to open it with Batman because I know the majority of it, Batman's not in it, at least up until like half the dialogue through. So I wanted to open it with Batman, and I figured to do that we'd have him walking and having the swelling of the music to show the need for Batman. That wasn't in the comic. That's something I wanted to add. The animated Batman shot was something I wanted to add as like a little Easter egg to the animated series, which I think is one of the best adaptations of Batman that exists. Some of the sequences that we had, like of the sewer, I think there was some sewer stuff in the comic, but all of that I pretty much left in Devin's hands. I was like, here's what I want it to look like, here's what I need its purpose to be, and then kind of gave him free reign on that one. I've also learned that when you have talented people, to allow them to have a level of autonomy is very helpful for you as a creative. Now, I still give parameters and I still might send some things back here or there, but I've found that if you want the most passion in the work, it's good to let passionate people do their jobs. I love that long take around the 2.5 minute mark where the camera keeps deliberately breaking the 180-degree line, passing from one side of the camera to the other. I felt like I was a fly on the wall in a neat sort of unnerving way. Thank you so much. Yeah, that was when I was debating actually removing that take. I was using my gimbal for it, and I don't know what it was about me that day, but I was having a really hard time keeping the camera stable. I was actually using a new lens, which was heavier, so the whole thing I'm holding is like 7-8 pounds now, and I've been holding it for like several of these shots, so I'm swaying it back and forth, and you can tell I'm having a hard time kind of keeping it steady. But the ideal was to move it from here stable, here to stable, and there to stable, to try and visually show this sort of back and forth moral, I guess, issue that my phone fell. This back and forth moral issue that the main character's having, which, by the way, I totally am not all about his morality. I had some people thinking that it was like me trying to convey some message. He's absolutely horrible person. You do not need to do something evil to know that being good is better. I don't need to murder somebody to know that murdering somebody is wrong. So I just want to be clear here. It is not some secret message from me. It was me trying to give a real adaptation from a comic. And lastly, Spencer, how many takes do you typically do before you decide you have the right one or enough options to work with? Great question. I'm actually still figuring that one out myself. So we only had one camera, and one trick that I have found to give the illusion of more cameras filming at once is to cut mid-sentence and use something called a J-cut for the line of the next cut to seep into the previous take. So I did that a few times, but for me, I knew if there was a certain angle I wanted to have, we just filmed the whole thing from that angle. So I think we filmed like a total of 4 or 5 angles, all kind of centered around this one spot, and then like one handheld. I get one shot from the side, we do the whole thing, like the whole 4 to 10 minutes, get a shot from the actual panel side, and I get a shot dead on, I get a shot zoomed in, just to give myself more stuff to work with. And luckily Tyler's a champ, and he just gave that performance over and over and over again. And then it's pretty much just to where I feel comfortable, like I like what we got. And it also allows for any changes. So if I'm shooting dead on, if he slurs a word, or if he maybe should have paused here or paused there, or maybe isn't conveying the emotion that I'm wanting him as the actor to convey in that moment, we can stop it, redo it, try and change whatever we need to change, and then reshoot that scene. And it's also up to you as the director to decide what you think is a good take or what isn't a good take or what else you want. Anyway, guys, that's it. I just want to talk a little bit about this short film, my experience making it. I know it did okay as far as numerically in comparison to some of the other videos on the channel. It doesn't get picked up by the algorithm, so I was, you always hope that your video will do well enough and will be appreciated enough by like the Batman community or whatever community to take off, and that wasn't the case here, at least not yet. Maybe this has been about a month, but I'm guessing that this is just one of those passion projects of mine. Glad to have made it, and then I'm off to the next one. And if you enjoyed it, I appreciate it. I will always continue to make these. I love making them, and every time I make a short film, I always learn something new and how to do something better or how to do something else. So I'm hoping to just keep on trucking through. I hope you guys will make some short films. If you do, go to the Holden Hardman subreddit. I don't run it, but it is fan run, but I do check it. So if you do make any short films, I'd love to check them out. But that's it, guys. I appreciate you all for watching. We'll catch you in the next video.